This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Building a portfolio with Fidelity Basket Portfolios is kind of like making a sandwich. It's as simple as picking your stocks and ETFs, sort of like your meats and other toppings, and managing it as one big, juicy investment. Now that's pretty good. Learn more at fidelity.com/baskets. Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC. Member NYSE SIPC.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
Welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. President Trump has made it clear his mission for the U.S. military is one of peace through strength, to be the most lethal fighting force in the world so we can keep the free world free. And joining us now to discuss this and so much more is Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, a former Department of Defense intel officer. He is also the president of Project Sentinel. Tony, great to have you here.
Rita, always a pleasure to join you. Thanks for having me.
How is President Trump reshaping the military?
I think it's a combination of Ronald Reagan, the best of Reagan, and the way Reagan recognized that we had to reinvent and prepare our military for the worst possible conflict, but work at the same time to avoid it at all costs. And I think President Trump recognizes that as a objective, as well as, the art of the deal. I always tell people, Rita, read his book. If you don't read his book, don't criticize the man for his techniques, because he's pretty clear on how he does things. And I think you put those two things together, it's a very unique and so far a very effective combination. And speaking as a Cold Warrior, someone who came up through the 80s as a member of the military and as an active military case officer and officer, out doing things, the esprit de corps change from the Carter malaise to the Reagan revolution was phenomenal. And I think we're already seeing a similar effect. The Biden, I don't know if it was a malaise, but the Biden transgender petri dish military that focused on inclusiveness rather than readiness is gone. And I think we're already seeing the benefits of Pete Hegseth being Secretary of Defense and President Trump saying, yeah, we're just going to do it. We're going to do it to be effective. And God willing, we can be so strong and so mighty, no one will dare challenge us. And I think, and oh, by the way, without being a bully, it's not our job to be the policeman of the world. It's our job to set a good example for the world. And I know President Trump has that in mind.
Your message is a very powerful one, that be the best, be the most lethal, as I was saying, be the most threatening, and be ready. God forbid you do need to do it. But on the other hand, do it sort of as a very, very last resort. And I think
Absolutely.
President Trump has very much said that. I mean, there have been some people who've said the phrase warmonger. He's a peacemonger.
No,
he really seems
not.
like, he seems like he wants peace at all costs. Right. But God forbid if I have to go there, we are militarily ready.
And let me make a distinction with a difference, because, conservatives, the left sees us as all conservatives, and we're not. There's a group called the neocons, and they're kind of obvious who they are. Bill Kristol, John Bolton. They believe that using military force as a first option to basically engage in military conflict as a form of foreign policy, that's not helpful. I'm not a neocon. A lot of us in the party, I think, recognize that we are Reagan. Reagan had a similar attitude. We're not trying to be an expeditionary force that goes around like the Roman legions conquering things. It's more about engagement, commerce, and trying to find a way to work with nations in a way that benefits both nations rather than trying to waste blood and treasure on military conflict. So there is a distinction with a difference. And I know President Trump is not a neocon. He's actually putting forward, as you point out, policies which will ensure that we are mighty. We will set a good example, but we will lead with diplomacy and commerce as our first go-to options to work with other nations around the world.
You know, you brought up also the art of the deal, and it really does epitomize it. He's also said, look, maybe we can do deals with Russia. Maybe we can do a deal with here. Using that leverage, sort of the economic incentive as a leverage, but it also creates relationships. It brings about peace. It's a whole sort of different way of looking at it.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's the key, that so much of what we now can depend upon. And you mentioned Russia. Well, you know, right now he's talking about doing something that will actually not benefit Russia, and that's dropping the price of oil. One of the things we've talked about a number of times, Rita, here on the show, is that if we could go to maximum production, just basically take the bottom out of the oil market, produce so much, we drop oil, you know, a barrel of oil down to $20 a barrel, you defund Putin, and you force him to the table in such a way that he cannot fight. He can't fight that. Military force right now, the Russians are on a war footing. There's no way we can get back in the game. It's just not possible. But we can do things to make it attractive for him to understand you got to come to the table. So that's the deal. You know, let's maximize our economic potential by basically once we give the economy unlimited oil at a cheap price, Katie barred the door. You're going to see amazing growth. And by the way, as I said, you defund Putin and his war. It's a win-win, and I think it's something that we should be thinking more in terms of.
This episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino. A meal isn't just about what's on your plate. It's about what you bring to the table. San Pellegrino believes the table is where the best of life happens. That's what makes gathering around it so rich and rewarding. And with their unique sparkling natural mineral water, San Pellegrino brings its best so you can bring yours.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco. Get the most out of your vehicle with GM Genuine Parts and AC Delco original equipment. The only parts designed, engineered, tested, and backed by General Motors. You can find your perfect fit for most makes and models and choose from 3 tiers of parts, including GM OE or gold and silver aftermarket parts. Visit gmparts.com for more information.
Learning through play starts with Lego Duplo. With Lego Duplo, toddlers can develop real-life skills while having fun with colorful bricks made just for them. Large, easy to grip, and safe to explore. When children express themselves with Lego Duplo, they build patience, problem-solving, and empathy. See your child learn perseverance and self-expression with everything they imagine and create. Visit lego.com/preschool to learn more.
You know, you talked about the funding coming from oil revenues. So many of the bad actors around the world have used that as the leverage for the war machine. I think about Iran. Think about had Biden been tougher on Iran and not been part of the administration with Obama sending pallets of cash, how different things could be.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the issue right now. Hamas, let's circle that square a little bit. So Hamas had benefited from that I don't know what you want to call it, the waterfall of cash that Biden gave Iran went to Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthi. And that effect we're still living with, the effect of that bad policy. Hamas, I don't believe for a minute, would have done the 7 October attack, Rita, without Iran's funding and approval. No way. And right now, that funding is finally running out. It's finally, we're now back strangling those proxies. And that's why it's so important right now that we have this special forces hybrid group going in to make distribution of food to the Palestinians, because Hamas continues to grab that aid and monetize it. That's how they're staying in the game right now, by basically grabbing that food and selling it to people in Gaza and other places for their own benefit. So this is where, again, we have to recognize that we have to be smarter than the terrorist organizations. We can't fund them, because anytime we fund them, we have to go fight them, and that is counterproductive.
What a difference it is in terms of leadership style from President Biden to President Trump. I mean, even, on the Russia, I think of the minor incursion. When I think about the way he handled October 7th, basically throwing Israel under the bus and doing, I remember you and I talking about that, the dock in Gaza that was the biggest boondoggle ever.
And if you recall, I said it would never work.
and you were right. I'm sad to say you were right again.
They picked the wrong option. It's like, Rita, this is the other thing, too. They had literally the high school debating team in charge of national security. Tony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, Lloyd Austin. I don't think you could have picked people who were more incompetent. And when you have that level of incompetence, failure is sure to follow. So just saying.
How much were the mission mistakes clearly playing a role? I mean, we saw it also very much in the minute that President Trump took office and he brought in Pete Hegseth, he said, okay, no more woke, no more DEI. We're going to focus on you being the toughest, greatest fighting force, and we're going to get rid of all this other stuff that he says, look, it doesn't matter. It's not towards the mission. And he even said that when he spoke at West Point, his message was fight, 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 win, 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 and nothing else. How important is that, and how much DEI and woke was, I guess, in our military before this?
That was everywhere. And it's interesting. I'm glad you framed it that way. It was an infection. It's Marxism rebranded as basically culture and racial warfare. That's what it was. You basically were trying to convince people, because of a certain physical attribute, who they slept with, what was on their body, the skin color, that somehow distinguished them and gave them the ability to be qualified and expert in what they do. And it was horrible. That's why you saw failure after failure. And we're not done yet. These people are still in there, and there's an effort to get them out right now. This includes general officers and admirals. A lot of people signed up to this stuff, Rita, because they saw it as a way to get a star or get benefit, personal benefit. It's sad. And I know for a fact Pete Hegseth is working to eliminate senior executives, admirals and generals who basically were infected by that virus. I think that's going to take some time. But more importantly, people were inside the actual body of DOD who were functioning in such a way to believe somehow your skin color would give you the benefit of experience and knowledge. And it's a very dangerous thing. It's still happening. My fiance is a Navy lieutenant commander nurse. She's told me stories. And, of course, people who, like us, like you and me, had to go to ground. We couldn't talk. They couldn't talk openly about how much they saw the damage being done, because they would have been shunned or worse, kicked out. So those days are over. I've had friends who have said, is this change real? And I've said, yes, it is. And they've decided to stay in for longer. So I think we're going to see an actual renaissance. And by the way, an honesty that was lost under both the Obama administration and more directly during the Biden administration, where, you could not speak truth to power, and you would suffer if you ever dared say somehow that merit should be the qualifier that actually resulted in promotion and positions of authority.
What percentage do you think, Tony, just as a guess, are still sort of part of this DEI woke policy in there? I mean, is it that's remaining the residual? I mean, I'm sure. And what do you think at its high point it was?
So I think, I'll be honest, about 15%. 15%. And by the way, spoiler alert, they're also the resistance. they're dual-headed as that resistance, which is growing, and it's there. It's there. And I know we know who some of these people are. And you can't just fire everybody like you'd like to. I mean, boy, oh boy, I'd love to sit down and there's people out there that are pretty obvious about it. Others are kind of trying to hide in plain sight. So about 15%, and another 20% just kind of goes along with them because they see political benefit in it. But you've got about 40% who just want to be there to do their job and get things done. Another 20% who want to go after and get rid of the stuff. So that's about the breakdown as I see it right now regarding the disposition of who's woke, who's anti-woke, and who's just kind of there to do their job and would like to not be bothered by anything except just trying to serve their time in the military.
Now, why can't you just get rid of them? Why does it need to be sort of a planned departure, or is it because of all the government employee issues?
Yeah. So for senior executives, you don't have to renew their contract. I don't know if you knew this, but SES, the senior executives, they are on a contract and just don't renew the contract. Always, this is the thing. They traditionally always renew it. It's like, yeah, just don't do it. Just don't renew it. And then they have fired some people. They have gone through, and I think this is why they're never going to put me in, because I would be severe. I would go through the intelligence community, for example, and just fire 20%. Just 20%. They are connective tissue without purpose. They just sit there and they create layers of inefficiency. So I would go in there. And by the way, you can fire people, especially in something called the accepted service. The accepted service, there's no civil service protections, just saying. So there's ways of doing it. And within that context, then you just have to understand the system and be brutal. And I mean brutal. That's why I'm never going in, because I will be brutal. Anyway.
They see you down the hallway and they say, oh, no.
Well, there would be no to me. It's like, no. And anyway, so and then the generals, you kind of have to hold a board. Yeah, President Trump, I think, wants to get rid of these folks, but you really, I think, want to be careful to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. You got to kind of go through. And I've recommended they hold boards which measure senior officers by two criteria. Were you a DEI advocate? It's pretty easy to find because that's going to be in their record. If so, what degree did you perform that function? And if it's to any great degree, you're gone. There's people like he brought back Raising Cane. I'm a big believer, Rita. I'm bringing back people to do things. This is not the first time this has happened. I think if I were advising President Trump, I would have him direct his staff to bring back graybeards like me, who basically, we don't have to worry. I'm not looking for promotion. I'm not looking for anything except doing what he wants done. So he's got to have people like me, like others in there saying, yeah, we don't care. We're not looking for a promotion. We're not here to be your friend. We're here to implement the policy of President Trump to remove woke, to restore warrior ethics and ethos. And that's what the job is, and that's what needs to be done.
And by the way, for the record, I'm sure your beard is not that gray, Tony. But anyway, okay.
Thank you.
How has warfare changed, too? I mean, that's the other thing. It was interesting.
Yeah.
President Trump talking about how, a lot of it is drone technology. It is high tech. It's AI. I mean, it really, the nature of the game has changed also for the military, for this next generation.
Well, that's why you need generals like General Kane and others who recognize that most generals and admirals are trying to fight the last war. Well, the last war, it's gone, not coming back. While I don't believe we should give up our ability to conduct insurgency or counterterrorism, counterterrorism is a necessary tool we have to go after terrorist groups. I'm an advocate. I spent most of my career doing that sort of thing from the time I was lieutenant. But we have to look at what you just said, drones. Drones are going to be a big issue. Right now we're seeing on the battlefield in Ukraine a combination of World War I and 21st century tactics, basically trench warfare with drones. It's different. And oh, by the way, we're looking at some new aircraft. My friend Blaine Holt and I talk about this. Colonel Holt, we're going to have to come up with systems of drones that fly along with manned aircraft. That's the future. And we have to understand that. And by the way, I can't get into it because it's classified. There's a whole new range of kinetic weapons that are now going to be shaping the battle space in ways we don't understand. President Trump's kind of talked about this a little bit, talking about weapons we have that nobody knows about. Well, we do have those weapons, and we have to understand, without giving away how they'll work, how to maintain an edge should we have to go to war. And this is critical. So you got to have people who are willing to break the trends of the past, to break that momentum of laziness and innovate. And I know people who could do that. I hope President Trump continues to bring them back, to get back into that innovative space so that we can exercise this, think it through, and be prepared.
Yeah, well, and also like going after the grids. I mean, we've seen, attempts by China to get into through hacking. I mean, we have to be ready for, whatever we can do or to counter it, right?
Absolutely. And the grid is a great thing. SCADA, supervisory control and data acquisition. Those are part of the grid that actually controls our lives. I mean, Rita, New York City. Think about what would happen if the grid went down for just a week. And oh, by the way, even if the grid doesn't get out, what if they were able to go in there and screw up the cycling of lights? Think about how they could create chaos and havoc by taking over these basically autonomous systems, which basically make life livable. What if they shut down sewer for a week? I mean, there's all these horrible things that could be done if you understand how to manipulate and use technology. It's a very different form of warfare. My old boss, Senator General Pat Hughes, called it infrastructure warfare. We weren't ready to fight it in the 90s, and, I don't know if we're ready right now, but we better get ready.
Anyone can follow. It takes something special to be an original, which is why the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV arrives with new ways of surrounding you in luxury, including the ultra-wide 48-inch panoramic display and the multi-sensory Lincoln Rejuvenate experience. A true original never stops evolving. So meet the 2025 Navigator, the original that's all new and better than ever. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Lincoln and Navigator are trademarks of Ford or its affiliates.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
We're shipping Father's Day gifts with a rapid-fire round of questions. Ready?
Yes. My gift. Can you pack it?
Yep.
Ship it?
Yes.
Guarantee it?
Of course.
Oh, send a set of golf clubs.
Oh, hole-in-one.
Protect electronics? Dog-proof it? Return it if they hate it?
Yes, no, and yeah.
Are you the UPS store?
Hey, we have a winner!
Visit the upsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Visit a store today.
Oh, such a clutch pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom, too. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
The GOAT.
Save up to 50% with minimum purchase at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Yeah, we better, because it seems like Chinese and maybe others are kind of dipping their toes. What about also Golden Dome, which is the missile shield that we heard so much about from President Trump? And I think the down payment on it is in this new budget bill that so far has been passed by the House, waiting on the Senate. But talk about how that works, and what would that do?
So this is something that my friend Ambassador Hank Cooper was a big contributor of when he ran the Strategic Defense Initiative back in the 80s into the 90s. Basically, there's 3 components, really 4. You just talked about digital, the system of systems that have to function. That's the digital part that has to function, all the cyber stuff. But more importantly, you have to have a space element, an air element, and a land element. We've developed these things. And my friend Hank, Ambassador Cooper, has said, the biggest danger to the deployment of the Golden Dome is not technology, it's bureaucracy. It's people getting in the way and not wanting to do it. That's what defeated SDI the first time. The SDI program was actually successful in ways that people don't fully understand. The Iridium satellites that we enjoy for phone, that came out of SDI, out of a part of the Brilliant Pebbles program, which we hope to implement this time, as well as the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is technology that was developed by the Reagan folks and perfected by the Israelis. These are all things which are available. And you combine that with some directed energy weapons and some other classified programs. Brilliant Pebbles is the program I'm mentioning. That's a space-based system that basically would be able to target and destroy ICBMs mid-flight. And there's other things with the Aegis cruisers we have, the Navy element of that. If you can put it together as a system of systems, I think we could eliminate between 85 to 90% of all ICBMs coming into the nation. It's very possible. I think the technology is there. But again, it's going to be the political will that President Trump must enforce rigorously to force the bureaucracy to do what he's telling it to do, to put together this golden dome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's working through the big morass that is the bureaucracy. Before I let you go, Tony, recruitment on a human scale, it seems like everyone's been talking about it, that there really seems to be a boost in morale in the military, a boost in recruitment. Is that because the warfighters now feel that they're not bogged down by some of this stuff and they're excited to be part of this sort of new military, or getting back to, or maybe it's not new, but it's getting back to the old values, if you will?
So I'm the proponent, and I've been very blunt about this with my friends and people I talk to. The Army's job is to kill people, break things, and hold terrain. That's it. That's their job. It's what happened from the time George Washington created the Continental Army till now. If you start perverting that by trying to introduce the idea that we're going to experiment, or if you want to become transgender, that's a recruitment benefit, that we're going to bring you in. We're going to spend $120,000, Rita, on every transition, which, by the way, they were doing under the Biden folks. And then we're going to give you a lifetime supply of drugs to make sure that you can kind of just hang in there and be kind of mentally ill, but, somehow believing that you're a different gender than you were born. That's what we were doing. And by the way, we were making an effort to recruit people like that, a small percentage of the population. For some reason, Rita, people in the Midwest with traditional values, they weren't digging it. They weren't signing up. Well, we're now refocusing on the people we need, the people from the Midwest who have traditional values, who want to serve our nation and protect the republic. That's why morale is back. They're going to be able to sign up to get skills. When I came in, we had the saying, be all you can be. And it was a great, I came into an Army at a great time, and there's benefits. There's a GI Bill. There's all sorts of things that people will benefit from. But the primary task is still to serve the republic, to protect its people, and do those things necessary to make sure our adversaries never dare act against us. With that ethos, with that focus, I think that's why people feel it finally, especially the parents, finally recognize now is the time to allow their kids to sign up for military service.
Yeah, and they know they have a president who has their back, who's going to give them the weaponry and the support, not just militarily, but also morally too, and so many different layers. Well, everybody, be sure to subscribe and share to this podcast. Tony, this was really powerful. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, really great analysis and just incredible insight. Really great to have you here.
Oh, Rita, always a pleasure to be on with you. Thanks for having me.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.